Hello, everyone. Okay, so today we have this session to focus more on audit trails. Of course, we have seen in various critical cybersecurity controls that audit trails plays a very central role. For instance, the past control that we have just covered about account control and access control. And of course, plus the other one that we covered, I think the last week, it was about data protection. All these in their realization, they are centered on audit trails. So far, we have been discussing about audit trails using Elastic Stack. So if you have not seen those previous video, please, you have to visit them first because today is just a continuation. And today we are going to tackle the issue of adding application custom logs. We have seen that Elastic Stack with its integration, you can integrate logs from any universal application, operating system, service application, database, whatever. Now, what if you have your own custom logs? And of course, we have seen the past control about account control and access control. It is also related with our own custom application. For instance, you have a business core application that you have just developed for your business. Now, how are you going to correct those logs and integrate them to Elastic so that you can analyze and realize those past controls that, like just I've mentioned? So that is the focus of today. And to make that a reality, today we are going to use the Logstash component of Elastic Stack. We have been mentioning it. That's why I say if you have not viewed the previous video, go and visit them first because today we are continuing and you are going to focus on Logstash to correct now database table logs for whatever application logs scenario this session or this lab session is going to sort that out. So before we continue, please download this lab guidance is in the description of this video because there are some commands that have very long text. You can't even lighting them one by one. To save times, I've included this lab guidance in the description of this video. So you better download it first, then you go hand in hand with us as we proceed. So all the instruction about this lab so far are contained in this URL from the Elastic. So you can even go and read them yourself. But here I've tried to summarize and going straight to the point. So we are working with Logstash. The first thing we have to do, because with the essence of this session or this lab session is to correct application custom logs that you have stored in your application table, being it user audit trail or operation logs or whatever, because we have seen in Elastic Stack you can correct various logs, not only for security, though the center of this series is for security. So to have that a reality, you have to install Logstash in your given local environment, meaning you have to have Logstash installation that is going to correct those logs and processing them and pushing them to Elasticsearch. So how are we going to store Logstash? There are some commands. The first one, we need to include the key because we need to update our apt sources so that when we run the given command, it understands to store Logstash. And of course, we are focusing on Ubuntu 2022.04 version, though the same process can be applied to any Linux-based system. And of course, if you are going to visit these guidelines, you can do more or less the same in any other operating system. But for this demonstration, I'm going to use that Linux-based system for boot. And of course, from now onwards, most of the installation and the tools and setups, they are going to be Linux-based. So if you are planning to be a cyber serv, and of course, going us with this series and the next one that are coming, Linux has to be your friend. But of course, you are going to run them incremental. So the first command is this one. We need to add this key to our repository so that when we run the command to install the Logstash, the given sources, apt sources are already there. So we copy it and paste it here. That's why I need you to have this because the command is long. But one thing to note, this command has to be a single line. But when we export it to PDF, it divided itself into more than one line. So you have to make sure you, as what I've just done, the second line you pull it up so that it becomes a continuation of this first line. Then you learn it, and it will need your sudo password. You can input it there and waiting, of course. The password I've written, I've mistyped it or something. Yeah, That one is done. So the first command is done. The second command, then you need to install apt transport HTTPS. All these are for preparing your given Linux system to be able to have apt source for Logstash. Okay, this is not the one. I have to omit this one because this is the repetition of the first command. I have to copy this new command here, and they are all here in this lab guideline. So copying them here, then pasting them here. Yeah, this is it. Then you learn that one. Of course, for me, I've already installed this, so you don't see anything, but for you, it's going to install it accordingly. Then you need to run this third command, which is the one that actually add Logstash or Elastic Stack apt source line into your apt source where you have the package repository. So you add this package repository source of Elastic into a given distribution. So as usual, I copy it, and of course, I can even paste it first in the plain text editor so as to make it in a single line. As I said, by taking it from PDF, it has included into more than one line, but it needs to be a single line so that it is executed as a single command, not as multiple commands. So I make it a single line in that form, then I paste it here. Here it is, pasting this command, then there it is. So up to now, I've already have this Elastic Stack package apt list in my apt source. Then what I need to do is now doing the actual installation, which is the following command here. I have to update my apt source, then actually installing the Logstash. Okay, so I'm going to run these two commands at the same time because this end here, it means you're executing the first command and the second command at the same time. So copying the process is as usual. You copy the command, then you paste it here. Yeah, there it is. Then it does the apt source update first based on your network and those other factors. Is going to pull the apt sources. Then after pulling the apt sources, then it's going to install Logstash. So all of these steps here is just to update your repository sources, which is the second command. Of course, the second command, which is about installing Logstash, for me, I've already installed it. But for you, it's going to execute, you will see some text, of course, for those who are not that familiar with Linux. You're going to see some text similar to this one, but not about pulling the sources, but it's about now downloading the actual Logstash package and installing them. But because I've already installed the Logstash in here, that's why you see that Logstash is already the newest version and it cannot update or install anything. So by this third or fourth command here, now you have already installed Logstash in your given environment. Now to see it, after successfully completing the second and the third command, you need to go to the Logstash home directory, which you write cd user, then share, then Logstash, which means now this is the directory now which have your Logstash installation. Now what it means there, I've already installed the Logstash. So I'm done with the installation part of Logstash. Now remember here we are reading logs from our own application. If you have like application in your given environment, then there are logs in the table. Now you want to centralize them because we have seen the usefulness of Elastics. Like I don't need to repeat that one. Now here we just need to add those logs to the Elastic Stack infrastructure. So in what it means, you need to have a database, and then you need to have a driver that Logstash is going to use to communicate with your database to pull those logs from the given database table. So for our case, we are going to use the most common open source database, actually, MySQL database. So we need to have MySQL driver, MySQL driver, which means a JDBC driver, because Logstash is using Java. So we need to have MySQL JDBC driver so that we can communicate our MySQL database through Logstash and pull those logs accordingly. So there is a link, as I said, I've included this file. You just copy this link to download your given MySQL driver. So I'm opening my browser here. It takes some time because I'm running in the virtual environment with limited sources. Yeah, now it takes you here. So here, what you need to choose is your given operating system. As I say, I'm doing it for Ubuntu, but for the case now of my SQL driver, because what I want is not operating system specific package. I just want the general jar archive of my SQL driver. So I'm going to select platform independence, and of course I'm going to select download. So you click download, and you are going to see a screen like this, whether you need to log into Oracle first, but you can just click no thanks, just start my download so that you can start downloading your given package. So for me, of course, I've already downloaded this, but now I've just downloaded it again for the purpose of showing it. So by now, the driver has already been downloaded. The next instruction is I need to create a folder in my Logstash home directory, which I'm going to call JDBC driver. And this is the following steps. I've already downloaded the driver, and of course, by default, that downloaded driver is going to be in my downloads folder, as you can see. Here it is. So the next step, according to this lab guidance, I need to create this directory on my Logstash home directory. So I'm going to copying and pasting it. Yeah, there it is. Of course, for me, I've already created it. So by pasting it's like it is already existing. But for you, if you're just copying and pasting it, it means now if you go now to your given Logstash home directory here, then you are going to reach the file, you are going to see the directory created, the ADBC driver, by just copying and pasting that command. Then the next command, as I said, this JDBC MySQL driver, we are going to use it with Logstash. So I move it wherever it is. But first, of course, I have to extract it because it's going to be in a compressed format. I have to extract it and locate its jar source or jar file type, and that's the one that I'm going to send it to the created JDBC driver. So I'm going back to where I've downloaded it. As I said, for me, is within my download folder. Now for you, it depends if it's your download folder or elsewhere. You just change directory to where it is. And of course, because you're using Ubuntu, graphical user interface, you can just go there and learning the normal opening, then extracting it. But for now, I'm just going to run this command to extract this MySQL MySQL zipped files. And after it has extracted, I can see there is a folder here. Then I'm going to this folder after extracting the complexity file downloaded. There it is. Then here I'm going to see this jar file. This is my focus now because this next command want me to move this given jar file from where it is to the JDBC folder that we have just created. So I can just copying and pasting here, but the source path actually is where you are given JDBC. It is so you can just write it is because I've already changed directory to where is it, so I can just copy it and pasting it here. So by running this command, it means I'm going to move this driver, JDBC driver, from here to where I've created the folder for JDBC driver within Logstash home directory. So as I said, for me, I've already done all these steps, so I don't need to repeat them. So by pressing enter here for you, is going to move this JDBC driver from where it is to where you want it to be. So there it is. So we are done now about JDBC driver. Now we need to have a database because we are talking about the application. And now you will have to, if you are just a cybersecurity expert and you need to centralize those logs, then you need to communicate with the administrator or developer of that application and to know where those logs are stored because your role is just to centralize them and to analyze them, to realize those control, like to know which account has accessed the watch functionalities, whose account has accessed the privilege that was not defined with it. So it's not your task to create those logs, but you just need to know where they are so that you can locate them and use them. So for the case of this session, and of course, even if you will visit the link that I've said this session is based on, there is this sample database because if you understand the normal table, how to integrate, then you can integrate any table of your given any application. So there is this sample database that we are going to use, and it's called ASDB. But for you, you are going to be focused on your given application database table that are storing the given application logs. And for the case of log that are stored in a flat file, you don't need to bother on all of these steps. The Elastic Stack that we have just covered, it has an integration for flat file logs. You can just use it and integrate, then you process the normal flat file logs. But for database table logs, there is where you need to have a Logstash component of Elastic Stack. So that is what we are going to do next. So we need to have this file. And of course, I will also attach this database, sample database, so you can use it for you who are running it for the first time and you don't have particular database, of course, to use it. But of course, you need to have MySQL database installed. And that part, of course, I've not covered in this video, but it is easier for you to install MySQL database. You can visit any YouTube video, or if you have any concern, you can WhatsApp us, then we can guide you. But it's very easy to install MySQL database in Ubuntu and in any other part. But as I said, the focus here is not the database and the table. The focus here is the collection of those logs and centralize them in Elastic. So this database, I'm going to include it in the description of this video. So even you can just import it to a given database. Here it is, the database I'm talking about. So what you will need to do, for instance, if you have not have that database in your given installation, then you need to create that database first in your given MySQL relation database management system. So that is how I log in. You log in by using commands, or if you have a GU client, you can use that the same to do the login. So if I'm not mistaken, I'm trying to remember the username and the password for this particular installation. Yeah, here it is. So that's it. And if you will see, for now, for my case, I've already have this database in, but for the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to recreate it by using a different name. But of course, for you, you have to use the same name, this one. But because I'm doing it off, maybe I can just drop it and redo it so that we go together. Drop. As I said, SQL is not the focus of this session. So even if you don't understand, in reality, you are not going to learn this command. You're going to consult the administrator. You just need to integrate the logs. Drop database, ESDB, but knowing them, it's better. Of course, if you are cyber expert, you need to have as much skills in different areas is useful for you. So I'm going to create the database now because I've just dropped it so that we can continue. So in straight, you just log in, and then after login, okay, maybe just let me repeating again to starting a fresh page. You are logging to your given MySQL database. You write the command or the graphical user interface that you are using. There you are. Then you create the database, which is called ESDB. For this tutorial, it has to be exact that name because you are going to use it in the script as it is. Of course, if you use a different name, then you can modify the script. But first, you have to understand the workflow. That's why I say you better use exactly the same name. So, of course, create database. There it is. So now it means I've already created the given database. So now I have to import. Now here is the database. As I said, I will include the link of this database in the description of this video. So you just download it before you proceed with this command. Okay, so now I'm going to MySQL. I'm going to import this database into the database I've just created. Yeah, this is the command. So you use your own ways. If it's graphical user interface, if it's the command, you can just follow them as they are. So there it is. Yeah. So if I will log in again, it means I will have the database in and the tables are there. For instance, now if I show the database, it was there. Here, the database that I'm focusing with. So I can use it to know the table that are here, because you need to understand the structure of the data that you want to collect and centralize in Elasticstack. Okay, so here is the table, ES table, and this is just a very simple database because the idea here is to understand, then you can use it in whatever table, in whatever database that you need. So I want just to see the records that are there. Then this is the command. I'm selecting all from this here. So in short, this is what I wanted to show you. Now you need to understand the structure of the data that you want to integrate to Elasticstack. And remember, the focus here is security log, but it can be any log or whatever that you need to integrate in your given Elasticstack. So for my case, I have this table that has 3 columns. The first is the ID, then the client name, then the modification type. Now it doesn't matter. You can have as many fields as you want because the idea here is to know how can you integrate it. So I'm using it this simple so that you can understand. Then you can improvise it in whatever database logs that you have for your given application. So I know I have ID, I have client name, I have modification time, and of course now we are going to see how are we going to use them now to do the collection in Elastic Stack. So I've done with the database part and I've understood the structure. So now I need to create the pipeline, the Logstash pipeline. Now this is the one that is going to do the wonder for me. Taking the data from the given database and given table, passing them and doing the modification and pushing them where they are supposed to be pushed. And that given pipeline, for this case, I'm going to name it tasty pipeline.conf. And of course, it can be any name, but it has to be .conf. And I'm going to store it in the home directory of Logstash for ease of use, but you can store it anywhere. As we're going to see when we learn it, we just specify where the given pipeline is, and then Logstash is going to pick it wherever it is. So for me, I've decided to install it in the Logstash home directory for ease of use, of course, and reference. That's why I've decided to do it that way. Yeah. So we are continuing now. So now you're going to create the file in this user share Logstash. In a nutshell, it means I'm going to navigate to my given Logstash home directory, and here I'm going to create the file. For my case, I've already created, but you can use any text editor that you are conversant with it. For instance, if you are using Ubuntu as it is, there are text editor that are graphical user base. Or if you use the command line, there are Nano, there are VIM. So that's your choice. So for my case, maybe I want to create another file like tasty pipeline. Of course, now because I've already this pipeline, I can name it as one for the case of demonstration. But the name here, if I'm creating the file for the first time, I just use exactly the same name. But as I said, you can name it wherever you name it, but just maintaining the extension to be .conf. And you can store it wherever you want it because you're going to tell Logstash where this file is. So I'm learning this command for the purpose of demonstration. That is how we are going to create it. But if you are using a different text editor, like maybe you don't have a GU, you are using a server that it does not have a graphical user interface, you can just say touch to create the file, or you can just say nano to create and use it at the same time. So it's your choice. But me, I'm using based on my environment. So if you are doing that, it's going to opening that given editor for you. And what you need to do now is to copy now this sample pipeline file that I have included in these lab guidelines. Okay, trying to scroll it down. Yeah, there it is. I just want to copy it all by the same by just once. So I copy it, then I can just paste it in my given editor where it is. No, not this one. The one that I've just popped up. This one. Yeah. So I paste it here. Now here is where now you are going to do your customization. But one thing you have to remember, of course, these have been copied and pasted as is continuous. There are no separated blank lines. So it's kind of difficult. Maybe just me use this one that I've already separated, or I can just separate this one so that I can continue with it. Because these pipelines have two parts, I mean three parts, the one that I want to explain it here. So the first part is the input part. Here is where you are going to specify where are you going to correct your given data. For our case, the logs. And for us, as you can see, we have these input directives and we are using JDBC. It means we are retrieving this data from the database by using JDBC specific driver. So there are some areas that you need to be concerned with. For instance, this one, where you specify the JDBC driver that you are going to use. Remember, I told you to copy the downloaded MySQL JDBC driver and store it in this given folder within Logstash. So you are going to specify that full path from the root file. I mean, from the root path to exact where you have stored the downloaded MySQL JDBC, I mean jar drive. And of course, this one is wrong. It has to be this way. That's the problem of it copying from the PDF. Some lines are separated while they're meant to be the same. So you may experience the same thing. Yeah. So there it is. So you specify the whole path, and the final name of your driver, you are going to name it depending on your specific driver, because some may have like version 8.1 point what or 8.2.1. So you give the exact name that you have just pushed it here. And of course, it is easier for you to know the name. Of course, let me opening another screen because I've opened it. If I go to my Logstash home directory, user share Logstash, and going to JDBC drivers. So here I'm going to see the exact name of my driver. Now this is the one that you need to modify and put it here, the exact file name. And of course the path is the same if you have followed the previous instruction. Now all these stuffs, you can just leave them as they are. And I don't need to explain everything, but here says where the path is. Here is the location now of your MySQL. If it's in a different IP, for instance, you have stored, you are given Logstash in a single machine, but you are collecting logs from different database. Now, if for this case, this one is in a certain different IP, you just specify it here in the port, of course. Then the database name, as I've just said it. Now here, you have to input your this MySQL database, the username that you are going to use to log into this MySQL database. You are going to specify it there. Now that depends on your particular case. The same for the password. Then you are going to specify it there. Now this directive here, clean line be equal to true. In production, we are not set it to true. What it does, if you say clean line is equal to true, it means every time you relearn this pipeline is going to recollect, even if those data have already been corrected and sent to your given destination. But if you learn it again, it's going to do it again. That's why we say in production, we say it's false that we don't do the clean line. We are continuing collecting the logs from where we ended, and that's the normal way of doing it. If I've collected like the first 50 logs, and of course I run it again, it should continue from the 50, the 51 onwards. But we put it here clean and is equal to true because we are just learning it here. So, and of course, as you saw when we viewed the given table, those records were few. We are just like five or three lines of records. So whenever that we learn it, we recollect it again so that we see it in action. But in reality, we will set it to false to actually just continue. Now, these other things, you can just leave them as they are. And of course, we are going to use column value. Now, things that you need to be careful with this schedule, because in reality, you are going to set this to run continuous. But if you set to run continuous, after how many, at what duration does it need to fetch the logs? Because in reality, those given application audit trails, for instance, they will be incremented. As long as the user are interacting with the application, the logs will be implemented. So if, for instance, here I say like every 5 seconds, relearn this pipeline. It means every 5 seconds it's going to do everything, but it's going to continue collecting logs from where it ended. That's the meaning of it. So this is a normal schedule command for those who know the cron tab. So you can set it in whatever way you want. Now, the other thing that we need to be careful with is this select statement. Of course, as usual, all these have to be a single statement, but just because we have copied them from this from PDF source, that's why it has been reformatted in the way that is, is distributed. So now this is the query, the SQL query now that you are going to use to retrieve those logs. And it's a normal SQL query. The database you have already specified, as we saw, and the table we saw there, the table was called the ES table. So I'm telling it to retrieve all columns. And of course, I'm going to read all this query and explain to you. You are going to retrieve all columns, and you are going to retrieve it from this table, which is in this database. And of course, that is in essence what it does. But as we have seen, you need to have a way for Logstash to understand when was the last record retrieved, so that when it lands the second time or the third time, it knows where to proceed. Now, there is where you need to have something that uniquely identify your given records. For my case here, if we will go to our given database table and see the structure ESDB, ESDB, then we select all from ES table. Yeah, you see the only thing that can easily use to track this is this modification time. What it means, if I will run it the first time and it ends here, so the second times by using these field columns, I can tell it to move by using, I mean, to go to the next time because this was the last time. So the second time is this one. Of course, for our case here is almost the same, but at least it knows where to proceed. Of course, another field that you can use is like this. So whatever field that uniquely identify your given records, you can use it to track so that the Logstash understand where was the last record retrieved and where should the next record be retrieved. And that's the essence of all this instruction. So that's why we are using modification time. And of course, now we use this time in this format, Unix time format. That's the normal function of processing this time. And of course, now I don't need to explain because this is a normal SQL. As I said, this command, if you are not knowing them, you can just consult the given database administrator or the application developer. So that's why I say, in essence, what you need to know is the table and this column. But that is what it does. It uses this modification time, of course, but I rename this in this square this. I'm going to rename this, all of this as this column name. And this, and now I put the condition for pipeline or for Logstash to know when to track. So you are always going to retrieve where the time, the modification time of this current time is greater than the last time. Because you remember, this is going to be executed repeatedly. So if I executed it and the last time, like I ended here, for instance, last time I ended here. So the next time, because it has to be greater, then I will move from this line onwards. That's the meaning of this square in a nutshell. So it has to be greater. Now remember, this is a keyword in Logstash pipeline. You just use it as it is, but it understand this is the last value that you have used, a SQL last value that you have used. And of course, now you compare those normal times as they are, and you order by using the modification time. So the query is not a big deal as long as you understand the table that you are going to retrieve the data and you understand the column that you are going to use it to track where to continue. So this is all about the input part of the Logstash. Now the second part is the filtering, and this is another advantage of Logstash. Apart from those integration that we have seen in Elasticstack, by using this we can filter data before we push them to the destination. And there are different filters. You can just go and start them on your own. But one of the filters is mutate, where you can do copying, like you copy the value of this field to this field, or you can remove fields. Like these are the fields that are within my given pipeline, but I don't want them to be taken to my destination. So you remove them in such a way that you are not going to see them when you are actually executing this query. You're not going to see where you push them. And you can even add fields. So I add this field called client IP and I specify the IP names. And of course, this is one of the practice because you may have been correcting logs from different application or from different database servers. So you can add field like client IP or application name. So when you are analyze them, you can know those logs are from what database server or from what application names. So this is about the filter part. And then the third part is about the output. Now, where do you want your data to be pushed? Now, you can see there are two output plug in here, but the second one, which is Elasticsearch, has commented out first because I want you to understand the basic. The basic is a standard output. It means now do everything, but just display for me what will be the output of this. And this is how you specify it. You specify this as a plugin, then you specify the codec, the format of displaying it. And all these are the keyword. Use them as they are. So in simple, I'm just telling the Logstash display for me as you're processing these audit logs from where I've told you. Don't take them anywhere, just display for me so that I can see them. So after doing that, then I can go and of course and execute my given pipeline. And remember, it has to be in this path. Yeah. So the file name is here, as I've said from before. So to learn it or to execute it, which is this next command here, you just go to the home directory where I've already getting, and then you run this command. You execute this logstash file, then you use this dash F to specify the pipeline file. Means this is where you are going to have the instruction for the logstash to do what you want it to do. That's why I said this file can be anywhere. But if you are stored it in the home directory and you are running the logstash this way, it means the file is even in the same home directory, to simplify. So I'm going to learn that given command. This is the logstash. Then I'm specifying the file name, which is this test pipeline. Then I'm going to tell it to learn. And I'm waiting to see the output because they have said the output. I just want the output displayed in my screen. So I'm waiting for it. Yeah, those are just the preliminary information. I'm still waiting for you to see the actual logs. Now, here they are. You can see the first iteration. I've displayed all the information, the client name, the modification type, and the added field. Client IP was not in the table. If you would have remembered, I've just added it. So everything was there. Now, because I don't have any other new records, so there is nothing new that I'm going to see. Yeah, so for my case here, I'm done. But if there were many records, then it would have displayed this one or processing this one. Then the next iteration would have continued from where it is ended based on the instruction that we have seen. So that means my configuration file is okay. And now I can push these logs to Elasticstack or wherever that I want it to go. Because even the output pattern is not only Elasticstash. Logstash allow you to push the given source data to wherever. You can just learn more about Logstash output plugin. But for our case here is audit trail or audit management. Continuous audit trail management, centralization and analysis. So we are going to push them to Elasticstack as we have been beginning in this series. If you have not seen the previous video, you can visit them. So now I need to modify the output because this one I can leave it as it is so that I see what is displayed. But I want also what I see here to be pushed to Elasticstack. So I'll need to go to my Elasticstack installation. So as I said, this is a continuation. Those video of Elasticstack installation and whatever using the cloud, setting up everything, we are already there. You can just visit them. But now I can just go it straight. I will use the cloud instance. Of course, this you can also, Elasticstack, you can even install it local. But I said in this video, I've just tried to make it simple so that you understand its usefulness and you know that what I'm going to use is for this purpose. Then installing local, you can learn the commands or you can consult me. It's just easy to install the same installation local. Yeah. So you go to your given instance. It is. Now, I don't need to explain this. As I said, all these stuffs have already been covered in previous videos. Yeah. Yes. Until I see him here. Now it takes me to my given Elasticstack instance, and you go to yours based on the previous video that we have covered. Now the lab instruction tells me, of course, before even going to lab's instruction, if you will revisit this pipeline instruction, you have to uncomment now this Elasticstack part, and you need to have this cloud ID, and of course you need to have the username and the password that you are going to use to log in. So these are the two things, the three things you need to have to push them to your given deployment. So if you uncomment this, it means you will have two output plugin. You will see the output as usual, but at the same time, those logs are going to be pushed to your given Elasticstack instance. So the instruction to get these stuffs are here. To know the cloud ID, you just go to your given Elasticstack instance, and then you go to to the integration. And we talked about integration. So then you visit this part, view deployment detail. This is the cloud ID that is needed to be pasted here in your given pipeline instruction. So you copy it and paste it here. But there, now we are talking about the file that is actually you have located here in the given Logstash home directory. So you will open it and paste it here. I don't need to open it because I've already pasted my personal information, my own cloud ID, my own username, my own password. That's why I don't really display it, the one that I'm using. So that one, you are done if you have this there. And then you need to create a user that you're going to use to push this, because you need to authenticate yourself to Elasticstack. That's the meaning of having the username and password. Now, you can also do that. Of course, the instructions are also here. I'm just doing what I've already written here. You go to stack management user, then you create the given user. Yeah. So I'm going again to my Elastic instance. Then I'm going to stack management. Then I'm going to users. Then I'm going to create user. Now to do that, you just write create user. You specify the username, whatever username, because this is your own instance. Then you put the full name, then you put the email address, then you specify the password, and you confirm it, the given password. Now, the important part is the law. Now, to make things easier, for just the case of this demonstration, you can just specify it as a super user. But remember, being a super user, it means that that given account can do anything. But Elasticstack has a very robust authorization and authentication mechanism. As you can see, there are many custom roles here, and each one has its own needs. So I don't need to cover all this stuff on just this demonstration. So that's why I say you can just put it as a super user, and having that your users or viewer, you have specified your username and password, then it means you have the username, you have the password, and it is already an Elasticstack. And of course, you can even test it by just log out from this given instance, like just what I'm doing it here. I'm not sure if I remember my username and password. Then you are going to use login with Elasticsearch. Don't use this login with the Elastic Cloud, because this is going to log in by using your own account. For instance, you have used Gmail account as mine. So here you will see the point to put your username and your password. Then it's going to log in you in as it is. So for my case, of course, I don't even remember the username and password. I will just use the normal cloud instance. I have the username and password here in this file, but I don't need to display it because they are universal, of course. I mean, anyone can use to access my instance if I display them here. Yeah, so that was just for the test. But what you really need to do is to take now those username and password to put them here, the username and the password. Now, after you have done that, then you can do the actual pushing. But now to note that your data has come here, you need to, of course, everything I'm doing, I've just put it in this guidelines manual. You need to go to stack management and the and the index management. Here is where we keep the index of all data. So for my case, because I've pushed it once and this is the index so far, so I will delete this index so that if I will push it now, I'm going to see the index we created and it have storage size. That it means I've communicated with Elasticstack and the data has been pushed it here. And I think even the one that I've just run, it was already pushed it, because I'm not sure if I commented it. I commented out. Yeah, I commented out. So the first line did not push anything. What I saw there was just the the previous the previous learning. So I commented it. As you can see, the ID, the username and password, of course, I display them, but it's not a big deal because I'm going to reset them so that they are no longer useful after displaying them. Okay, the problem is I've opened this file without credentials, so I could not save it. Now I reopen it again, and of course, and comment this line here as I've just been telling you to do, then saving it. The editor depends on your given editor that you are using. Okay, so now, as you can see, in my index management, there is no new index. So if I would push those data, I expect a new index to be here in terms of that. That means the data are there. Then I can just use the discover and analyze them as we have just talked in the previous video, where you can analyze the data and see them. So I just relearn the command to, to execute the pipeline, which is sudo logstash, and I specify the given pipeline and waiting for it. As I said, there's no pipeline here. index management is just empty. Not empty, it has some other index but does not include the one that I'm expecting. And I've said to come here, you just go to stack management, then you go to index management. Okay, see now the index is here. It was not there before. And if I come here, you'll see it is already executed. Now I see the data here because I've specified the standard output plugin, but also the data have been pushed in this index that I've just deleted, but now I see it and it has some bytes. So here now I already have my logs in Elasticstack. You can now analyze them in Discover as this demonstrated and implemented in previous videos. So that's it for today. Until next time, that is how we correct the logs from custom application and put them to Elasticstack for our audit trace to realize those control like access control, account control, and data protection accordingly. So have a nice day. Thank you.